Initiating System 1. System 1 loaded.
Come walk with me. Come talk to me.
This is the construct. It's our loading program. We can load anything from clothing to equipment, weapons, training simulations, anything we need.
All governments are immoral and criminal institutions because they force everyone, under threat of violence, to pay mandatory taxes for life. There are hundreds of taxes, from property tax, to income tax, to inheritance tax. You must pay them all, or else the government will use the power and force of its machinery to seize your bank account, arrest you, and put you in jail. How is that any different than the mafia? Governments demand we pay our dues regularly, promise us we'll be safe and protected if we do, and if we don't, agents come around to shake us down or put us away. If taxes were voluntary, then governments wouldn't automatically be immoral or criminal, because they would be completely funded by donation only. Thus, their very existence limited by voluntarism. Name one thing that governments provide that people couldn't do better, easier, and more efficiently at the community level. There is nowhere on earth you can go that isn't controlled by a statist government. Every piece of land has been divided up and claimed by 196 nations, all of which are controlled by some form of forced governance. There is nowhere left on earth that sovereign, freedom-loving individuals can go live freely without a mafioso government forcing them to pay taxes and obey laws. All current forms of government initiate and mandate violence and slavery upon their populations. We are all slaves to our governments because every nation forces under threat of violence and kidnapping that we must pay them a percentage of our income. So if the definition of slavery is forcefully taking 100% of someone's income, what is it called when governments forcefully take 60% of someone's income? Is that not slavery? We are taught in school that slavery ended long ago, and it is universally understood that slavery is immoral. But if governments still are forcibly taking even 1% of their population's income, that is still slavery, and even 1% slavery is immoral. The very definition of the word government is mind control, and the vast majority of people worldwide are absolutely mind controlled by their governments, medias, and education systems to believe that their statist government is a moral and altruistic institution that exists for the benefit of the people. The reality is, of course, the opposite. The reality is that all nations are like open-air slave plantations, allowing their servant populations to choose their occupation, giving the illusion of freedom, then swooping in on payday to steal the fruits of your labor. This is why all governments are criminal and immoral, and why the only system of just governance is anarchism or voluntarism. There is no political solution to the problem of government. Voting for a new ceremonial figurehead every 4 years has never, will never, and could never create any significant, lasting positive change, because governments cannot be improved or made moral from within. None of them respect the right of the individual to opt out of being governed. All governments around the world initiate the use of violence in the form of police and coercion in the form of taxes, and this is absolutely immoral and unacceptable. Consensual sex is moral because it is voluntary, whereas rape is immoral because it's forced. Similarly, things like charity donations and the free market are moral because they are voluntary, whereas theft and taxation are immoral because they are forced. The root problem festering within all governments around the world is not the rife internal corruption or criminality. Those are merely symptoms and side effects of statism. The paramount problem with government is that its mandates are mandatory. Its compulsions are compulsory. For governments to be moral institutions, all taxes and interactions must be made voluntary. If governments are honestly in existence for our benefit, then they must be voluntary and never initiate the use of violence against their populations.
When you look in the mirror and see yourself and you see like one person looking back, you are made out of 50 trillion cells. And the cells are the living entities. So when you look at yourself, you're not a single entity, but you are a community of 50 trillion cells.
Right now, we're inside a computer program.
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self.
Early humans ate mostly plants. And the reason for this is actually quite simple.
Humans do not have any specialized genetic, anatomical, or physiological adaptations to meat consumption. By contrast, we have many adaptations to plant consumption. We have longer digestive tracts than do carnivores, and this allows humans to digest plants and fibers that require longer processing time. We also lack the ability to produce our own vitamin C. Vitamin C is found in plants, so the fact that we cannot make our own indicates just how reliant upon plants we actually are. This is why we have trichromatic vision. This is very different from carnivores, which have dichromatic vision. We can see more colors, and this is very important, especially if you need to find fresh, ripe fruit.
It's important to understand the word community. Every cell is intelligent, but when they're in a community, they give up their personal intelligence and respond to the central voice. And if the central voice says to die, the cells will die.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Long before the theory of gravity was a glimmer in Newton's imagination, the natural physics of density and buoyancy already perfectly explained why apples fall down. Quite simply, objects fall or rise based on their relative density to the medium surrounding them. Apples fall because they are denser than the air, while helium balloons rise because they are lighter. No gravity necessary. Everything seeks its relative density and rises or falls until settling accordingly. Now, this has absolutely nothing to do with gravity. Gravity is a hypothetical magnetic-like force to help explain the heliocentric theory of the universe. To claim the existence of a physical law without a single practical evidential example is hearsay, not science. How is it that gravity is so strong that it can hold all the oceans and people stuck to the underside of the ball Earth, but so weak that it allows birds, bugs, and balloons to casually evade its downward pulling force? How is it that gravity holds our bodies clumped to the underside of a ball Earth, but yet we can easily walk or jump and feel no such consequences?
So the central voice is the mind. What I would talk about is the role of how this mind works. First, there are signals from the environment, the internal and external environment. The signal can be a chemical, like a drug, a hormone, a growth factor, or a signal can be a vibrational wave. The brain, the function of the brain is to perceive the signals and then interpret those signals and then send the information to the cells to control the behavior and the genetics. So
This is the world that you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix.
Cornell and Harvard say the optimal amount of meat in a healthy human diet is precisely zero. Cornell and Harvard say the optimal amount of meat in a healthy human diet is precisely zero. Meat kills animals. Meat kills us and is killing our economies. Killing our economies. Water, as you know, is the new oil. Nations will soon be going to war for it. It takes 50,000 liters of precious drinking water to make 1 kilo of beef. Today, 1 billion people are hungry. 20 million people will die from malnutrition. Cutting meat by only 10% will feed 100 million people. And eliminating meat will end starvation forever. Go vegan. Eliminating meat will end starvation forever. Go vegan.
the function of the brain is perception, and from that creates the mind. You are made out of protein. So the energy in your body that controls the protein is a vital force. So the new science brings back the old story of vital forces controlling life. So when a signal binds to a protein, what happens to the protein? It moves. It makes behavior. Now, if you are healthy, your behavior is good. But if you have a dis-ease, the behavior is not right.
You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
We're all Earthlings. And what do all Earthlings have in common? Two things. We all want to live. We all desire to live. And the second thing is we all avoid pain. Those two things make us equal. We all desire to live. And we all avoid pain. Pain is pain. Suffering is suffering. Don't categorize it. This is all suffering for these animals. Every glass of milk supports this industry.
These are not industries. These are atrocities.
They're selling a product. It's addictive. It's addictive. It has a chemical called casomorphine. When you digest it, that chemical is released. Casomorphine. Morphine. It makes you giddy. It makes you want more.
Get off the meat, the dairy crack. Get off the meat, the dairy crack. This is how
Question: what can cause disease? Either the protein is bad or the signal is bad. Now, look, there are only 3 ways to mess up the signal. 1, trauma. Number 2, toxins. If the chemistry is not good inside the body, the signal cannot be passed through bad chemicals. But the third one is thought.
We have only bits and pieces of information, but what we know for certain is that at some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI.
AI? You mean artificial intelligence?
A singular consciousness that spawned an entire race of machines. We don't know who struck first, us or them. But we know that it was us that scorched the sky. At the time, they were dependent on solar power, and it was believed that they would be unable to survive without an energy source as abundant as the sun. Throughout human history, we have been dependent on machines to survive. Fate, it seems, is not without a sense of irony.
The mind. There's nothing wrong with the body. It's just sending the wrong signal at the wrong time. Every cell in your body has a minus voltage on the inside and positive voltage on the outside.
The human body generates more bioelectricity than a 120-volt battery and over 25,000 BTUs of body heat. Combined with a form of fusion, the machines had found all the energy they would ever need. There are fields, endless fields, where human beings are no longer born. We are grown.
Every live cell is a battery. Every cell has about 1.4 volts, not too much. 50 trillion cells in a body. Times 1.4 volts is 700 trillion volts of electricity in your body right now. And you can use that energy for healing.
For the longest time, I wouldn't believe it. And then I saw the fields with my own eyes. Watched them liquefy the dead so they could be fed intravenously to the living. And standing there, facing the pure, horrifying precision, I came to realize the obviousness of the truth. What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.